there, commercial construction coffee talk fans. Thanks for chiming in. My name's David Corson. I'm your host. I'm also the publisher and editor of Commercial Construction Renovation Magazine. This is what it used to look like. I'm breaking out some archives here. September of 2020. Orscheln, they're now Tractor Supply. They merged, and but we appreciate those guys on the cover. And let's see how big this one was. What was I doing? Oh, I was playing lacrosse, of course. This one was I play in the old guys league, and I tell my wife I only need so many shifts. I played scored plenty of goals in my life, but anyway, this issue was 160 pages. I mean, really healthy, and looks like I had a little more hair back then, and I'm looking as just as gray as I am today. So, where does the time go? But look, I could still do it at 62, running up and down the lacrosse field. And I'm just looking for about 7 or 8 shifts. If I have to go in the goal and get pelted, I'm like the team manager, you know and like they call me for pickup if anybody needs anything. But you know what? I love holding the magazine in my hand. But we went digital August of 2021. That was my last issue I printed when we had vice president of operations for White Castle restaurants. It was the biggest restaurant they'd ever built. I got the scoop on it. But I don't miss the printer. I don't miss the post office, all that things. And last year we just had under 49 million people or interactions and hits on the website, about over 2 million unique users. We average, actually, last month I had 6.8 million and 366,000 people that come back more than once. And most of those people come back 7 or 8 times a month that are unique. It's just amazing. It's been an amazing transition from print face to face over the last 5 years to digital. And anyway, it's been a wild and crazy guy, but everybody out there in the web who find us, we have Google, 90% of them. Thanks so much for typing in a little search box and finding our content on the first page of Google, and boom, there you go into the site. So we really appreciate that. But today's hump day, and it is just beautiful here in the ATL, and got some really bad weather coming in on Saturday. A couple of my clients last night were sending the email out. I got different versions of it, but they were all there's a supercell coming in, and they're warning it's a severity of 3, which is severe winds, hail damage, and get the heck batten down the hatches. So everybody's talking about it, and people are texting me, "Hey, you're getting ready for the storm?" And so, of course, I'm building a house up on the lake. So tomorrow or Friday, whenever I have to check out the weather, I got to go batten down the hatches, tie down some stuff, and then keep my fingers crossed. I already got blown down the front when I started building, and Helene came through and knocked my frame down. So round 2 with Mother Nature. Never a dull moment on the construction site, you know? But with that, hey, we're talking about devastation and facilities and residential homes, storm damage. Got a nice gentleman down at Vero Beach. His name is Fred Malik. Did I pronounce it right, Fred?
You got it. Yeah.
All
Thanks,
right.
David.
And he's the managing director for Fortified. Say hello to our audience out there, Fred, from down in Florida on the East Coast.
Yeah. Hey, hello to all you guys that are fans of the coffee shop. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. And listen, the reason why I had Fred on is, listen, we're coming through winter, and the summer comes in and all the storms and so forth. Then you got hurricane season that comes in at the end of the summer, into the fall. And we had, Helene came, the only storm that we got affected by last year. And I've been in Atlanta since 92. So I've gone through a bunch of storms, and they come up through Florida and they come in through, up into Atlanta. And Helene, that made a 620-mile trek from where it came in the Panhandle all the way up to Asheville. And it came in, jumped over Atlanta, jumped a ton of water, flooded downtown, and then came down and just whacked my house, and then went about 2 hours northwest into Asheville to totally like an atom bomb went off. So hopefully not everybody out there hasn't forgotten about them, or the people in Palisades, or the people in Maui. I can go down the list of what Mother Nature has thrown at us. And so I'm getting prepared. Hopefully, everything will go cool and it won't be that. But better be prepared than not. I'd rather know about it than not. But last night I was a flurry of emails and texts. Supercell's coming in. Get ready. Normally here in Atlanta, if snow's coming, they rush the stores. They rush. They think they're going to be out. Completely. I don't know what I'm going to do. I got to get milk. I got to get bread. But I'm sure if that storm's coming in on Saturday, the shelves will be bare. they'll just go crazy. So
Yeah,
uh,
you mentioned something pretty interesting there too. Is you're talking about that, and people are reaching out to you in Atlanta. And a lot of times when we get to talk about fortified or how severe weather affects the built environment, we start talking about wind in particular. Everybody assumes that's a coastal phenomenon, but you just made a great point that that's really not the case any longer. So there's lots of reasons for people all over the country to be paying attention to the conversation we're about to have here on Coffee Talk.
hey, the wind. I was actually shocked because the framer was up there and he was finished. He goes, "Look, I'm not going to come up here. It's going to be raining, and then the following day the storm's coming through. Helene's coming through, and you should be okay." So after the storm went up, I went up, and sure enough, the front got blown down. And but you can be amazed at how what the wind had pushed over all of these trees along the highway, and anybody that was doing a construction project, those silt fences were blown to smithereens, and it but the news is pretty good about it. The alert that I got last night was from one of the local news channels, just saying, "Hey, it's a severity of 3. You want to tie down anything? If you got any stuff out in your deck, chairs, throw them in your pool, or just tie things down. You don't want stuff flying in the air." And uh, but like I said, I've gone through a lot of hurricanes that have just come through here. But Helene was amazing. Now you deal with natural disasters and Mother Nature. I
Yeah.
still don't understand how a category 4 hurricane comes in inshore and then goes 620 miles with no water underneath it, with warm water to fuel it, and it just went up and it was actually supposed to go to Nashville,
Yeah.
and then it kind of made that northeastern turn and it went up to Asheville. But I don't know how it kept all its might. I'm still bewildered because normally if they come in at a 4, by the time they get to a lane, it's probably a 1 or a 2 max, and
Yeah.
because it doesn't have that strength. I mean, even Milton came across right after Helene. It went across on the west side of Florida and then beeline towards a little south of Jacksonville. It came in as a 4, but the time it got to the coast, that's only a 3 hour, 2.5 hour ride from west to east coast in Florida. It was only tropical storm, maybe a category 1. It
Yeah.
lost its might. So I got questions, but what do I know? I'm just a publisher, you know?
Yeah, well, and the interesting thing is, when we build away from the coast, we're building at a lower threshold. We're building, around 100 to withstand about 115 mile an hour winds, and lots of the building products and the building systems that we have, unfortunately, in the disaster mitigation space where we live and the research that we do, we see that we don't always get the performance out of the systems that we expect, and based on testing and the code. And then, of course, there's a ton of stuff that people just don't pay attention to when it comes to mitigating for that heavy downpour and those flash floods. And unfortunately, it's the flooding that really did the number on Asheville
Oh
and
yeah.
those Appalachian communities. So even though the winds may not have been 140, 160 miles an hour when they got up there, the water was really devastating. And so it just underscores that it's important to be paying attention to all the kinds of things that could happen. But there are some things that we have learned a lot about when it comes to mitigating wind risk and hail risk. That you can do to improve how buildings will perform. Whether we're talking about single family homes, we're talking about multifamily or commercial projects. The principles are pretty common across all 3 categories.
I felt bad for my roofing contractor because he came up a couple weeks after that, and we were gonna go all metal. We ended up being hybrid shingle and metal, and just everybody kind of went that route. They were all Southern ranches, and you got the HOA wants everything consistent. And but I felt bad for him because he was showing me, saying, "Oh, these are good for 150-mile wind." I'm like, "Dude, man, we need to have them for like 300." And I always tell people when storms come through and they have destruction or in the construction, it's a good thing. It's not a good thing. It's a good thing to make a positive out of a negative. And it's the opportunity for the building manufacturers to come up with new innovative products that can withstand, 300-mile-an-hour winds, or be able to put houses up on stilts so they don't get that storm surge, depending on what type of facility is. But it's an
Yeah.
opportunity to make to come up with those new products and have people think out of the box. Hey, how can we fix this so when Mother Nature throws those, like this weekend, Saturday, the supercells coming in, my wife goes, "Well, what happens if the tornado comes?" and the sirens go off. I said, well, we're on a slab. We bought a little, I had the trophy house where I always had a basement. My first year I lived in Atlanta, I got the blizzard in 92. And it shut the town down for almost a week because it didn't get above freezing. It was like the Ho Chi Minh Trail on 285.
Yeah.
And and then we had this huge tornado that went across the county from Lawrenceville all the way into Ashfordoni, where it's old, homes have been there for years, trees, and it just made this path. And my house, the tornado went right by it. It hit about 2:33 in the morning. And everybody, the news guys told us it was going to hit in the morning. But I was sitting in the slab with my wife, my newborn son, and my golden retriever. And I was on a slab and I was in the middle of the house in the bathroom. And the storm came in. There was so much pressure from the tornado that the water was like coming through my windows. I mean, I couldn't have run across the street because there was so much debris in the air.
Yeah.
You would have gotten clocked by a 2x4 or whatever it had in it. So anyway, I looked at my wife. I said, "We are selling this house. I am not
Mm.
going to live in Atlanta without a basement." And so we bought the sold this trophy house after 17 years. I think that was my third or fourth house. Bought a little house, so I'm on a slab right now. And she goes, "Where are we going to go?" I go, "We're going to go right in that pantry. That's the most inner door of the house, and we'll keep our fingers crossed." So we're thinking, you know, but hopefully some people take it. It's like a hurricane when they come in. You see people trying to ride it out. I'm like, uh, get inland, get away from that thing, and hopefully it won't follow you up, But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
so
I mean, one of the things that we may get an opportunity to talk about is, if you are really thinking about how you can have your plan in place, one of the pieces of that plan should be to try and make your building or your neighborhood as robust and resilient as possible. Fortified's one way to do that, so that it makes the decision to evacuate easier, right? If you're confident that your home's going to be there to return to, then you have a whole lot of choices about, where are you going to ride out that storm. If it's a hurricane, are you going to go inland? How far are you going to go? If you've got severe weather, like a severe convective storm that could spawn a tornado or something, knowing where your places of refuge are, is an important part, to really have that plan to say, okay, if that siren goes off, where do I need to go, and how do I get there? Because the house will be okay. I don't have to worry about defending the house. I just need to get out and get to someplace safe. That's the kind of decision making that's possible when you have a more resilient structure. And let me just take the opportunity too
yeah,
to let your viewers know that, IBHS, we're a nonprofit. We're funded by property insurers, and all we do is research. All we do is look at how do buildings react in severe conditions like wind-driven rain, hail, and wildfire. How do we understand those reactions and then devise solutions? But one of the things that we do, we put out for free every single year on our website at ibhs.org, is our thunderstorm ready guide and our hurricane ready guide. They're free resources for people, and it's a great place to start building your plan. What are the things that you need to be prepared to do? And then it also lists out projects that you could do that are DIY friendly, because not everybody's super handy and got a tool belt and comfortable up on a ladder. So there's some DIY friendly guidance in there. And then, of course, if you're at a point where you're getting ready to build, like you, up on the lake, or you're retrofitting and re-roofing an existing home, there's some stuff in there that, hey, when you're investing those dollars, here's some information about investing them wisely so you can get the performance that you're looking for. Same goes for like multifamily and commercial property owners. If you want to maintain that asset, and if you have a portfolio of assets, you want to maintain them so that you have less opportunity for business interruption. You can keep your tenants can return back and keep paying rent effectively. Taking some proactive steps as you're doing normal maintenance, like replacing roof covers every so many years. There's a really great strategies in there to mitigate risk at appropriate times without having to necessarily break the bank.
Over the years, my in-laws are over in Hilton Head, and they've made the trek across I-16 so many times because they were older, and I told my mother-in-law and her husband, I'm like, Rich, Diane, don't stay over there, because if the power gets knocked out, you're not gonna have any electricity or anything. Trees could be down. You're gonna be stranded there. It could be 85, 90 degrees and humid in the summer. You don't need to be in that. Just that's what insurance is for. Your house is built good. Keep your fingers crossed, and hopefully no trees fall on it. But get out of there. You don't need to stay there, because it's very
Yeah.
flat. There's no berm and the storm surge, whatever it might be, especially, you just don't, when Mother Nature says, hey, I'm coming to play, you just you got to take it seriously. And,
Yeah, one of my personal stories, my mother and father lived in Hilton Head, and they had never really experienced directly a hurricane. And they were, one of the hurricanes was threatening, and they were making preparations, and we kept talking days in advance about, hey, make sure you're going to evacuate. That a hotel reservation, they knew where they were going to go. But as their preparation went on, they didn't have a fortified house at the time, and so their preparations kept going and going. They ended up not being able to get on the road soon enough to be able to make it to their evacuation point because of all the traffic, just like you
all the traffic,
talked about.
95.
So they ended up having to shelter in place, and just like you said, they didn't have a basement. So they asked me, "What do I do?" We said, "Get into an internal room that had no windows. It happened to be a bathroom." They huddled up together in a bathtub and listened to a freight train go by for about 8 hours
Yeah.
until the sun rose and they could go outside and see all the devastation in their community. And so, it's a scary thing when you're stuck in that situation. And thankfully they obviously weren't harmed, but lots of homes in their neighborhood had real damage, and it could have been a really different outcome. And so we've talked a lot since then. They've now moved down here. They live in a much stronger home. They've got, temporary power in the form of a generator and stuff like that. So that whole experience, shaped their perspective as to how they want to ride out hurricanes in the future. So anyway, I hate to hear it. Makes me uncomfortable to hear about people that have to go through those things and be risky, because a lot of that stuff's preventable if we can just be a little bit more intentional about our plan. So
Yeah.
anyway,
No. Like I said, they were coming in last night, and I asked my wife, and she goes, is this thing true? I'm like, I don't know. I got mine from WSB, so I kind of just went on there. I said, yeah, no, look, they're calling for really bad weather here coming in here this
yeah,
week, and everybody's talking about it. And then I had one of my clients text me this morning, hey, man, I see you're getting bad weather. I'm like, yeah. But today, just beautiful, but it's coming. So,
yeah,
uh, in any event, let's talk about the last 5 years. So March 2020, there's cranes everywhere. All of a sudden, boom, standstill. And now, 5 years later, we're kind of, we're out of the tunnel, but there's still some speed bumps and potholes that, we have to go through or deal with. And talk about how Fortify kind of, even though it was kind of a non-natural disaster, but, how did you weather the storm per se? And where you are now, what trends did you
sure.
see, coming down into 2025, and any new products that people might want to think about?
Yeah, I think there's been a fair amount of innovation. I mean, building in general is not an industry where we see a ton of innovation. Now we are getting into some newer technologies, and we can talk a little bit about some of those. But yeah, like a lot of companies, we had to figure out how to engage our audience and engage with folks that were interested in resilience from a distance. And we travel all over the country, and we used to do a lot of in-person interactions, and thankfully, that's we've been able to reinvigorate some of that stuff. But we had to get smarter, and that forced us to use some technology. I've been building houses for over 30 years, and when I first started, we didn't have beepers, we didn't have cell phones. We had a hardwire phone plugged into your
Yeah.
trailer, and you were and all your critical path was written in paper with a pencil, and so that's my background. That's where I came from. But that situation forced us to use technology, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. The computers and cell phones have gotten so good. You can carry so much power. You can take imagery. You can place things like the date, time, geostamp that really makes it more feasible to get accurate information and convey it to other people that might need to know it. For example, in our Fortified program, one of the key things that separates us and helps us get the kind of performance that we've gotten both in the lab and in the field is our verification process. And so, one of the lessons that I learned coming up through the trades or at least as a superintendent, and then into purchasing and sales, you get what you inspect, not what you expect. And that's, a founding principle of what we do in Fortified is we have really good guidance, but we also, help people monitor that so that we can be sure that they're going to get what they're investing in. And so, I think that was, figuring out how to leverage technology in that way, communication devices, cameras, drones, things like that have become staples now in a lot of what we do. When it comes to building products, we are starting to see some pretty interesting innovation there. Wood construction still dominates. You see it everywhere, particularly, 3 to 4 story buildings on the multifamily side. It's still very common. And so a lot of what we do is look at what are the most common building products being used and come up with guidance for that. But we're also, we're funded by property insurers, and they expect us to stay on top of what are these coming technologies so that we can give them information so they understand how to underwrite it. So we're looking at things like 3D printed homes using concrete. We're looking at, factory built structures and how can you leverage, while factory built homes is not necessarily new as a concept, the way those houses are being put together and the materials that are being used is really on the forefront in a lot of cases. We're also looking at things that may pose risks. So, for example, when you have, say, solar panels going on the roof, how does that impact the roof dynamics? How does the wind flow over a roof like that? What do you got to do to make sure that your home that is resilient is not going to be negatively affected because you've added on something to improve its energy efficiency? And there are ways to make those things work together, but it's really important to be thinking about that and then consulting experts to figure out, well, how do I put these two things together and get both sustainability and resilience? So, I mean, those are a couple of things I think that are in the path of what you're talking about. We're also seeing things that are innovations in things like roof and wall sheathing. Looking at ways to make it easier for a less and less skilled workforce to execute important techniques. So things like Huber zip roof systems, for example, they have an integrated weather-resistant barrier and tape to help cut down on pathways. One of the things that we require for water to get in, one of the things that we require under Fortified is something called a sealed roof deck. There's a lot of different ways you can get there. Zip's not the only way you can get there, but it's an example of a manufacturer thinking about, okay, what do we want to try to do, and how do we make it easy to execute? LP's got a similar system called Weather Logic. There's a bunch of people moving into that space now, but those are just some of the examples that we're seeing. And then, of course, you got solar shingles that are starting to come out from companies like GAF and Certainteed. So those are some of the things that we're seeing.
When in 2020, that first year, the first thing I did in March of 2020, I went and I told my son, I go, look, I was working out of my house, so it didn't bother me being at the house. I told him, I said, look, we're going to redo the deck. So we went and got lumber. If I didn't do that in March, and I would have done it in like May or June, I would have paid probably 4 times for those 2x10s or whatever they were that I was using. And I know a lot of people did a lot of renovations, during that period. They were looking
Sure.
at their house. They were, hey, maybe we should get that done and this done. And it was an awesome time for manufacturers because they had an opportunity where they had a kind of an upsurge in people doing those DIY projects at home, or they had putting it off, and now they were there. Might as well make the best use of your time. And so over that period, some new products, and then things as they opened up, people came out with new things. Like I walked the roofing show, what was it, a couple years ago, and I didn't know that Tesla had this metal roofing with the sensors in there. And I went by the booth. I was a media sponsor at the roofing show. I think it was in New Orleans. I forget. Anyway, I didn't know. So I talked to the engineer for about a half hour. And he's like, yeah, you should put the metal roof in with your tax incentives. It's about the same per square feet of regular metal, and you won't be
Hmm.
able to tell that the sensor's in there. And now the shingle guys are getting that in there because I couldn't, my HOA would not allow us to have solar panels in the subdivision. They just
Yeah.
wouldn't. And so I was going to put it in, but when the Tesla guy came out, the way that the sun and the house was positioned by the building area that the county did on our lot, it just it just wasn't advantageous for it. So we just went with a hybrid roof and moved on. And shoot, I'm 62. Am I going to be there when I'm 90? Hopefully, I live that long. But we
I'm
just
rooting
wanted
for
to
you.
be, yeah, yeah, yep. But when we put it in, I was like, hey, listen, 25-year warranty, and if you do maintenance and you keep it up and you keep your eye on things, it's just like an old car that you keep on running. You can't just neglect anything in your house. I don't care if it's weather stripping on the windows or. So when I built this house, insulation was the biggest thing, and not letting hot air in when it's cold or cold, or vice versa. I
Yep.
just wanted it buttoned up with that little bit of air that you need to come into the home. But uh, yeah, so many people did all those DIY projects, and and you can do that stuff. You could, hey, go click on YouTube. You watch a video on something, you go do it. You get the right tools, and you can get her done. And but roof, hey, you're dealing with heights and ladders, and that's you got to have the faint of heart of that. So um,
Yeah, well, I wouldn't recommend anybody does a DIY roof project unless they're
yeah.
unless they're real part mountain goat. Like I said, I've been building houses and commercial buildings for a long time. Heights is not my favorite are not my favorite thing. So while I know a lot about it, I wouldn't want to do it for a living. But it's interesting. You know, we've been doing this kind of research for decades, and one thing that has emerged from all this research that we've done is there is a well-defined sequence of building failures when it comes to these kinds of natural disasters, especially wind-related disasters. The roof is always the first system that's going to have trouble. It just is. It's up there in the air where the winds are going to be strongest. The wind moves across and exerts an incredible amount of pressure. It ages every single day. So you mentioned earlier, making products that are designed to last, against severe conditions. But usually those products are going to be tested when they come right off the factory line, and not a whole lot is known about how they perform as they're aging. That's one of the things that we spend a lot of time and effort doing is looking at how products are aging, specifically roofing products. But the roof is the first place to start, and that's an important lesson, I think, for anybody who might be listening. If you're thinking about either how you might make your home more robust, but you happen to be in an existing home, you're not getting ready to build new. If you're coming up on a re-roofing project, again, whether it's a single family house or a small community of rental properties, whatever, um, investing in the roof, when you tear off that roof cover, there's several things that we have in our program that we tell you to do that will dramatically increase the overall performance and doesn't necessarily have to break the bank. On an average house, it may cost you $1,000 to $1,500 to get fortified wind resistance in that roof, and really that's cheap insurance when you're talking about an event that might happen just a few years into the roof's life. So paying attention to the roof is really important, and we emphasize that in Fortified.
Hey, I look at the roof. Hey, it's your rain jacket, and it keeps you dry. I don't care if it's a house or a big box store or a strip center or a hotel. The bottom line is you don't want any water coming in there, and uh, every, if water comes down, gets on your customers or gets on all the merchandise or slip and fall. There's all those issues
Sure.
that come into it. So, I look at the floor and the roof.
Inventory. Yep.
Yeah, the floor and the roof are like on the same level to me. They're so important because they have so many different attributes, not only from an architectural product, but energy, safety, insurance coverage, all of those things. And
Yep.
so, um, but I'll tell you, a lot of people though, like I said, they did so many things, and then as time rolled, here we are 5 years later. I'm very excited, with AI, the way it's come out, and improving products and the way things are installed. 5 years from now, you probably won't even recognize some of the stuff that the way it's built or how it's built or why it's built. And we can put, like all your research, you could put it into that AI, whatever platform you're on, prompt it correctly, and you could find so much stuff just at your fingertips that you don't even that if you didn't know anything, or if you spend a half hour, you'll be an expert of not an expert, but you'll be knowledgeable enough to make a rational decision. Hey, is this something that I should invest in? And you know, I had a project management firm on, and he said, "Hey, my finger's like a construction project, and your fingernail's like basically the new build." And the rest of this is all maintenance, refurbishment over the life of the span of the building.
Sure.
And and in retail, they're doing new prototypes, refreshes every, 3 to 5, 4 to 6 years, and they're building new stores. So if they're not building, they're dying. That's just retail for it. But the bottom line is that as they build, they're going to get rid of their dog stores or redo the ones that they want to keep, and they're going to build new and improved ones, not only with sustainability, but for, insurance purposes, and they want to make them look up because competition's fierce. Uh,
Yeah.
do I go here or do I go across the street? Which hardware store do I go to get my sheetrock? And
Yeah.
so, but I think it's very exciting to see some of the, like I said, the roofing guy had come out and do my house. Oh man, he was very knowledgeable and was showing me all this stuff. And he knew I was a magazine publisher. I've had my magazine for 25 years. I come from a construction family too.
Yeah,
They've
there
been
you
in
go.
business since 1888. So I've shoveled asbestos,
Wow.
laid railroad tracks, welded. I'd watch out for the cranes in the scrapyard. So, but working with your hands, if you are a DIYer and you want to make your poop, it's just so cool having to say, hey, I did that, man. So
Yeah, for sure.
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean
So,
that's how I got really lucky getting falling into the construction trades and in the construction business.
well, tell us your story. Where did you
Well,
go?
I grew up in Northern Virginia. I'm born and raised in Fairfax, Virginia, and then I went to college at George Mason University there, and graduated with a government and politics degree, and wasn't quite sure where I was going to go. But I had some family and friends that were in home building, and they mentioned a company that I ultimately ended up wanting to go or going to work for, and I ended up spending 15 years there. But
Wow.
and I saw, I went as an assistant superintendent through sales, through purchasing and specifying, and into division project management and production management, things like that. A few years after I went into home building, I went back and got my master's degree because I realized that I really love the industry. It is something to see when you're responsible for producing what is likely to be the biggest investment somebody's ever going to make in their home and raise their family there. There's a lot of pride being able to say I did that or I helped that family accomplish that goal. And I wanted to grow in the industry, so I went back, got my master's degree at Virginia Tech, and then ultimately after the '05-'06 hurricane season, a builder down here in Florida reached out and asked if I could come down and join their team as they started to recover. And that's when I really started to get into, understanding a little bit more about how severe the weather really was, and how buildings played a critical role in either a really good outcome or a really bad one. And so, I started to learn a little bit more about Southern construction and hurricane related construction because we didn't really have that in Virginia. Hurricane tie on a hurricane clip on every other truss doesn't
Hmm.
really cut it when you're down in this environment. And then, went out and had the opportunity to go out and do some commercial development, work with a small company doing some stuff on the beach. And then ended up here at IBHS about 16 years ago. They were starting to really be interested in growing the Fortified program, and I had an opportunity to kind of get in as they were rebranding and rethinking that concept. And I've spent the last 16 years here growing the program. We now have when I first joined the company, we were designating about 30 homes a year, and now we're designating 1,500 homes a month. We'll do 22,000 homes this year, and we'll do several hundred multifamily buildings and commercial buildings across the country. And so it's been a really interesting sort of developmental path for me, going from being the guy on the front lines, not really knowing anything, to being behind the scenes now a little bit more, and knowing all the research that goes into these critical decisions that are being made.
IBHS, they've got a really cool research center. Am I correct with the wind tunnel and all that, right?
Yeah, if you go to ibhs.org, you can see some of our videos. We have a $40 million facility located in South Carolina, and we can create at full scale. We have a tunnel large enough, or a research chamber large enough that we can put 9 single-family homes in this wind chamber. There's 105 fans. They're 350 horsepower apiece. We can create 130 mile an hour winds. We can create 8 inches of rain an hour. We actually have done enough hail research and invented some technologies. We can actually recreate natural hail in a laboratory environment and do that at scale. So we also have the ability to shoot hailstones at houses and other kinds of building materials. And then we also have a unique capability to create ember showers and study wildfire and the dynamics of wildfire. So we're really heavy. My counterparts and peers are really heavy into looking at what's happened in LA, out at Lahaina in Hawaii, the Camp Fire. So we're one of the leaders in that space in terms of understanding the dynamics and mechanics of how wildfire works. So it's pretty cool what we can do there. There's nobody else that can do what we do at that scale.
No, I knew about the research center, and but it's kind of like on a bucket list for me. As an editor, I was kind of like, "Ooh, I'd like to go check that out." See the wind
Yeah.
tunnel and so forth. But um, if someone was out there in commercial construction coffee talk land, and they were thinking about, "Hey, we were going to think about refreshing stores or part of our portfolio, or
Yeah.
maybe I'm coming into a new build. I want to find out, what's the best way to think about my building envelope." How would
Yeah.
someone reach out to you or someone at Fortified?
Yeah, so the best way to get to my commercial team, so we have both a residential track and we have a commercial multifamily track, and we have a couple of folks that really understand the intricacies of commercial construction. But the best way to go is to come to our website at fortifiedhome.org. Once you're there, you'll see a drop-down box that says solutions, and underneath that you can pick the track that you want to go. Are you talking about residential? You talking about commercial and multifamily? We have worked with like franchise organizations that want to help their franchisees have resilient stores. We're working right now with a whole network of multifamily developers in Louisiana who are building affordable housing to the fortified building standard down there. So that's a great place to go is fortifiedhome.org. The other thing that I will tell people is that all of the building standards, all of the checklists, all that kind of stuff, it's up there and it's available for free. You don't have to work with us to be able to review what we have to offer, because our goal really isn't, this is not a profit center for us. Our goal is to see how many families and business owners we can put under safer, stronger roofs and also make the rest of the building envelope more robust. So all those resources are available there for you for free.
So if you're out there in coffee talk land, and maybe you're branching out to an area where you know that they're prone to get maybe a hurricane come their way, or run up the coast and get high storm, whatever it might be, reach out to Fred and his team, or just go to the website. They've done all this research and data, and I'm a content data guy, so I'm addicted to it. So I've been there, but regardless, if you're thinking about it, go in there, and then if you can't find your answers on the site, reach out to these guys, because the last thing you want to do is crank out 20 stores and go, "Oh, why didn't I think of that, or why didn't I do that?" And then you got to go back, and it's just crazy. And
Well, I think the other thing that business owners are challenged with, and I think you know this, David. I'm sure there's a bunch of your viewers and listeners on Commercial Construction Coffee Talk that are, really right now struggling with a dysfunctional insurance market, and insurance is hard to find, it's expensive, and one of the ways that you can help to try to mitigate that is by demonstrating that you have taken proactive steps to mitigate your risk. Insurers are in the business of underwriting risk, and the more they know about the risk, the better they can be with pricing. But if they don't know a lot, they're just going to, lump everything in as if it's all the same. And so participating in a designation program, whether it's whether it's ours, Fortified, I hope it's ours, but if it's not, participating in a program like ours that gives you a certificate that says, "Hey, I followed these rules. I'm mitigating these hazards." That just makes that conversation easier to have, and it can improve both affordability and availability of options for folks that are looking to insure stores, neighborhoods, portfolios, or individual properties.
yeah. So, like I said, if you're out there and you're thinking about doing a refresh, or coming out with a new prototype, or branching into a market or a region of the country you've never been in, and yeah, and I said they're prone, whether it's tornadoes or wind, or whatever Mother Nature throws at you, do your research, find out, and if you don't have your answers, reach out to the team. That's what they're here for. I kind of look at, Fred's team, when I was building it was my first ground up. My wife was interior, a lot of basements, kitchen remodels and that. So when we bought our land in 2020, I said, look, we're going to build this, but we're going to be the contractor. So we can say we built that and you use it for your portfolio. And when we had our major inspection for framing, mechanical, plumbing, and electrical, I think it was, um, the inspector, I had about 24 items, just cosmetic stuff that we went through. But anyway, I had to hire a third party to inspector to have another set of eyes because it was our first build just to make sure. Anyway, they
Yep.
knew each other. They'd gone through all the coding classes and all that. But anyway, the inspector from the municipality was awesome. He goes, man, we love people like you that do it yourself and you learn. And he said, look, my job is not to penalize you. My job is to make sure that your house is safe. I don't want the roof getting blown off. I don't want the flue to catch your house on fire. That's what I'm here to do. And you're going to build more projects with your wife. So I'm going to doing your inspection. So everything I had on my punch list, this way you can go back to your subs and say, look, this guy's going to be looking at all our stuff, and this is what he likes to see. So when we do it,
Yeah.
we can get through the approval process that much faster. And I don't
Yeah.
have to, go through the fine, comb per se and look for stuff. This is the way that they want to do it in this county. Now the county next door might do it completely different. That's just the nature of the beast. But where
Yeah.
we are, at least I've gone through it and the permitting process and all that stuff and a couple of natural disasters and hopefully not this weekend again. And but reach out to these guys. This is what they're there for. So um if there was one positive thought or phrase that you'd like to leave with our listeners as we finish up, what would it be as we're basically in the last month of Q1 and, Q2, 3, 4 till the end of the year and, time's flying by. It's going to be, Christmas season, and the end of the year before you know it. What would that be?
Yeah, I give that some thought and I would say that, the coming from a building background, I was a skeptic when it came to resilience and, anything that affected the cost of what I was building, I knew that that was going to have an impact on my ability to sell. And I think that the one encouraging thing I would say is, you can offer resilience, which is an emerging trend. Homeowners are asking for it because they see the accumulation of disasters. They're feeling it in their pocketbook when it comes to trying to get property insurance. uh, you can make a difference. You can be a leader. You can be somebody who really provides solutions, to your consumers, whether they are individual homeowners or they're the tenants that are going to live in your properties, or you're a general contractor and you're building for an owner who's going to operate a multifamily community. You can make a difference. And all it takes is the desire to do so, and you can change the outcomes for thousands and thousands of people just by paying attention to a few extra details. There's nothing better than after a disaster hits to go back and look at the properties that you built and that you were involved in and see that the outcome for the folks that live there or that work there is way different, and they're recovering faster. So you can make a difference. All you got to do is get a little bit of education, and you can figure out a way to make it affordable.
Hey, it's like buying tires. You want to get your tires to, have the treads go as far as possible. But if you don't keep the right air pressure, just little things, rotating your tires, all that stuff, they're not going to wear as long. It's just you got to take action. And so, become knowledgeable. And regardless, it's just the little things that you might think about, especially if you're doing multiple projects and you're going to build kind of the same cookie cutter, but every building is different. But uh, you just don't want to afterthought. It's like putting sheetrock up. I go, darn, I should have put that cable in there. Now,
Yeah.
the drywall
And now
goes
once you
up.
made that decision, you may be locked into that decision, or your buyer might be locked into that decision for 10, 15 years. Don't put them in that spot.
Yeah.
Make a good decision now, an informed decision now, and you can have an impact a decade from now.
Yeah. Well, anyway, Fred and his team, they're there for you. And if you get a chance and you're up in South Carolina, and you can check the research center out. It's probably an awesome building. And like I said, it's on my bucket list. One of these days, I got to go check it out.
We'll have to get you up there.
Absolutely. As we finish up, a couple things. Number one, if you're on the construction site, we want you to be safe. We want you to get home, be able to have dinner with your family, spouse, husband, kids, pets, call it whatever it is, and get some REM sleep and get up early and do it again the following day. Number two, where's my water bottle? Here it is. You got to stay hydrated. Okay, it doesn't matter if winter or summer. You got to stay hydrated. This is the athlete in me. If you get dehydrated, you get a headache. When you get headaches, you make mistakes. You don't make the pass. You don't score the goal. Your statistics just go down. You don't sleep as good either. So if you drink water all day, put some electrolytes in there too. You will have a better day on the construction site, and you're going to get home, and you're going to sleep better, and you're going to have a much better day the following day. Last but not least, hit the like button. I want to get these algorithms out there on YouTube. So Fred and his team, you can find these guys out in the web. And listen, thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. And like I said, I got the storm cell coming in, a couple of days from now. So I'll shoot you an email
Yeah.
and say, hey, it
Let me
wasn't
know how you
bad.
did. Yeah.
Yeah, no, look, I don't mind the news and people getting prepared, because the last thing we want to do is, when you knew it was coming and you didn't do anything and then you waited till the last minute to get stuff done. Like I said, I've gone through Mother Nature. Don't mess with it, And uh, I had one of my buds. I
Yeah,
forget.
our most precious resource when it comes to natural disasters is time. And
Yeah,
the more warning you get, the more proactive you can be, the more time you have. That's
you don't want
just
to get stuck
that's
on the highway and not have gas, And
that's true.
I remember there was a hurricane. I don't know which one it was, but it went through the Bahamas and just destroyed the island. And it came right up to the coast of Florida, and then it did like a 90-degree
Dorian.
turn, and it kind of just sat there and spun. It was this monster storm a couple years ago, and then it did a beeline up the coast. And one of my buds who was in Vero Beach, I told him, I said, Ron, you don't need to stay there. If power gets knocked out, you're 70 some odd years old. Listen, I got plenty of bedrooms up here. Drive up. It'll take you a day. You get out early. You won't get stuck in that traffic. And, so he did it in 2 days. He got up here, but he was up here for about 10 days because all the power, it
Yeah.
didn't do anything. But the storm did come. It went up. Yeah, if you're on the coast. But that thing, if it would have come in, oh my, that would have been a nightmare. That was a monster. And it just came out of the Bahamas, just sat there, and then it went right up. It was crazy. And
Yeah,
you know
Dorian,
which one I'm
I was
talking about,
on the
right?
beach. Yeah, Dorian, and I was on the
Was it
beach
Dorian? I can't remember.
being interviewed by the Weather Channel, and which is it was about 2 miles that direction, 2 miles east of where I'm sitting. And to your point, I mean, I was really confident in the fortified home I live in. I built this home for my family 7 years ago. But I was, on the beach evacuating my mother and father-in-law from the barrier island, and Dorian was, 30 miles
30 miles, yeah.
offshore. Yeah, it was that one had us nervous for sure.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Well, look, Mother Nature, it's like, I came to play. I'm gonna go back. I'm taking my tool, I'm taking my equipment, I'm gonna come back another day. But listen, you prepare your house for battle whenever it's due, do your maintenance, go to the site, get knowledgeable. And if you're thinking about doing any things, hey, better say, and like I say, you might even be able to knock some points off your insurance bill. So awesome conversation.
Yeah,
And
good to talk to you,
I
David.
will, and I'll touch in with you after the weekend to let you know what happened. So,
Sounds good.
any final thoughts before we sign off?
Just appreciate the opportunity, and I love what you're telling people here. Get prepared, be proactive, and maintain your properties. That's all good stuff.
All
So
right,
thanks
say
for spreading
goodbye
the
from
word.
Vero Beach,
All right, we'll see y'all later. Thanks
and I'm going to
again.
say, goodbye from Sugar Hill, which is right by the Beaver Dam on Lake Lanier. Oh, probably about 25 miles north of downtown ATL. Listen, everybody, it's Hump Day today. You got Thursday, and then TGIF on Friday. Woo, the weekend, and I got the storm on Saturday night. So, but I got a generator. We got food. We got this and that. And hey, if I end up in the pantry with my dogs, and they, just gonna ride it out and keep my fingers crossed. So hopefully not. But with that, everybody, we appreciate y'all. We will see you next time on another episode of Commercial Construction Coffee Talk. Brett, I'm gonna check out that research center. All right.
All right, buddy. Take care.
All right. Ciao, everybody. See ya.